What is up, everybody? Mobogsly here, back again with more Flesh and Blood content. It's been a while, but I've been very busy, and with the new Blitz changes, I want to talk about my boy Kano, my favorite deck in the whole entire game. A lot of you probably heard on Twitter that I got second. No, I got first place. We drew for first, last, second at the Realm Blitz side event for the invitation. So I do have an invitation for the Realm 20K, I believe it is. I took this exact list and I split the finals with my teammate because Team Ascent always rises to the top. But yeah, so I believe Kano was the best deck in the last meta, just one of the hardest, if not the hardest deck in Fab history to play. And I think it's going to still be the best in the next format. But without Iyslander and Oldhim in the meta anymore, we need to take this list and change it and refine it. Because I was playing cards like 2 Swell Tidings, 1 Scolding, 2 Voltic Bolts to get over the top, to push damage, to make Oldhim leak damage, to make Iyslander leak damage, to make these very defensive decks leak damage and take damage. But that's not the case anymore. Without those 2 heroes in the meta, we can go more for this aggressive style of game plan where maybe Aether Quickening is now the best card. Maybe we don't need 2 for 5s, we want 1 for 4s. Just kind of tweak that deck a little bit, still keep a lot of the core value in the deck, but change it to try to target these more aggressive strategies. So what we are going to do is we are going to build the deck here together, and I'm going to go through my thought process. So first off, we lose Kraken's Aethervine, which is very upsetting, but we also really only use that card in the meta and sometimes against Fissurize if we knew exactly what they were on. But our core equipment will stay the same. Wait, never mind. We don't even use Cracker's Aethervine. I'm thinking of Waning Moon. I feel like a dummy now. We lost nothing. But again, we don't really have those Wizard Mirrors as much without Iyslander. However, we still want the Constellas and the Waning Moon in the sideboard for those Kano mirrors. Because let's get rid of the wizard tag. So in the main board, we're going to run the same thing in almost every matchup. Stormstriders, Node, Crucible, Tunic, and Lens. A lot of people don't like Lens. People tell me that I'm old and I need to get with the new helmets. But Lens is my go-to helmet. I love Lens. I think Lens is the current best helmet for Wizards and Blitz. But it's okay if I'm wrong. I'm not going to argue that. I just like what Lens does for the sake of my deck. For sideboarding, you have Constellas and Waning Moon for the mirror, and maybe Viserai if you really want it. You have Gambler's Gloves only for KO. You can bring it against Reinhardt if you're that scared, but I don't recommend it. You have Cracker Jacks for the meme because you don't need all your sideboard slots, so Cracker Jacks is just fun. You bring in Crown of Providence. I like this a lot against Reinhardt. You could just die on turn 1, so the extra 2 health does really help. Then you also need Ragamuffins. Ragamuffins, again, if you want to go that route, you can. I always have it in the sideboard if I feel like Lens is letting me down that day for some reason. And then last but not least, you have Nullrune Hood for the mirror and for, well, not Isoline anymore. So that's literally just for the mirror. So this is my equipment sweep that I like to bring. Cracker Jacks is a meme, and you can cut it at any time. Let's just go ahead and cut Cracker Jacks for now. There we go. And now let's get into the actual deck. So let's start with blues. So for blues, you have the staples, right? You have your potions that you need. Energy Potion is always going to be coming in. This is one of my favorite cards. 1 Potion of Deja Vu. You don't need it as much without Iyslander and Oldhim. Your pitch stacking isn't as important. However, it's a really good blue that I personally find to be a lot of fun to play with and can really win you games you have no business of winning. The other blues that you always need is Eye of Ophidia. This card is the best blue in the game ever printed for Kano. it is bonkers. It loses you the game sometimes, but most of the time it will get you that extra over the top damage. Now, if you just look at wizard cards, we have what I think is the most interesting part. Our blues don't deal much damage, but I think it does matter which blues you take. For example, Aether Flare is a blue I always play because buffing up your next spell is huge, especially without Wildfire being legal. Even at blue, it can still give you those big turns. As you go like red Aether Flare into blue Aether Flare into anything, tons of damage there. The other blue I like used to be Aether Spindle, but without the baddies of the big decks in the room, I don't think we need this as much. So that's going to be one blue spot we leave open. We also used to play Scolding, again, without those big decks in the format. I don't know if we need Scolding as much. There might just be other blues that we can play. Gaze the Ages is basically an Eye of Ophidia, but Eye of Ophidia at home. So whenever someone says, hey, I have Eye of Ophidia, and you're like, all I have is Gaze. It almost always does the same thing, but sometimes it does not. So Eye is strictly better, but this blocks for 3, so that is helpful. Looking at these blues, Absorb and Aether not really good. Aether Dart is fine if you think you're going to have a Dromai meta. If Dromai start popping up, be sure to throw these in your deck. Aether Quickening is a great blue. It's a 1-for-2 that has an on-hit effect. I've never had the on-hit effect actually do anything for me, but it is there, and it might be able to sneak you out some games. Scrolling down, you have this one, which I always struggle to say its name. It's a 0-for-1 that, again, has an on-hit of opt 1 if it deals more than 1 damage. Almost never happens, but sometimes you can get a free opt, and it is cheap, and it blocks for 3, so that's good for me. So we currently have 3 open spots from our last deck list. I keep looking over at this monitor to make sure I'm not missing anything. Reverberate is even better now without Oldhim in the meta. It makes these aggro decks decide if you can get free action points or if they want to pitch and not let you do more than 1 card a turn. The blue one is super strong because 2 damage doesn't seem great, but 2 damage is almost any spell in our deck, so it almost always forces their hand. So now, without the big baddies running around, we don't need those Scoldings. We don't need those Voltic Bolts. And because of that, I think Scalding Rain gets a lot better. I was always low on this card, but AB isn't as important nowadays. Or AB isn't as... You can play around AB more without Oldhim and Iyslander being in the meta. Of course, you will still have decks like Bravo in the meta, but this is going to be a more aggressive build. And with our last 2-ish slots, I do think we are going to keep the Scoldings in the deck, just in case you do find yourself up against one of those Bravos. You still want the big blue spell that can deal 4/5 damage on your opponent's turn. And I like to personally play 19 blues most of the time. It is your choice if you want to play 19 or 18. So for right now, we can just say we're going to keep it at 18 and come back to the blues. Next up is the yellows. A lot of decks don't like yellows. However, Kano is different. Kano lives off their yellows because some of our best spells are yellows. The yellows actually don't change at all from our last deck list because the yellows is just great. 1 Chain Lightning is good into every matchup. It's a 3 block. It gets your arsenal out of your arsenal on your opponent's turn. It has so much flexibility. Lesson in Lava, one of the best cards ever printed for Wizard, if not the best. And then Sonic Boom. It is such a clean sweep of yellows, but they all do so much. And then we cannot forget about Tome of Findel. Tome of Findel, again, very amazing yellow. These yellows are a staple. If you ever see a list that isn't running these 7, I would question it. Going up to 1 more Chain Lightning might be correct in the upcoming meta. It's just really good for those big pop-off turns where you have like a Sonic Boom and Arsenal, and on their turn you can play a spell off the top, play Chain Lightning off the top, get the Sonic Boom out of your arsenal, and you can just go so wide. Kano's a deck that normally struggles at going wide a lot of times, but Chain Lightning really just lets you force that damage through. It's also good on your turn if you Kano off the top, You see that, you can play anything in the Chain Lightning into anything, and now you've just played 3 cards and just done a certain amount of arcane damage. Now we need to look at the reds. Probably the most fun and the most differences for our deck will be in the reds. So let's just start from the top. Aether Flare was amazing before, and it just got even better with people cutting their cards and making their deck list more slim. Next up is Aether Spindle. We cut the blues, but the reds are still just that strong. If you're playing against a Fi or a Briar, if they don't block anything, being able to opt 5 off the top is insane to set up. Make sure you draw 4 blues next turn. Make sure you put a good red on the top of your deck. It really allows you to do so many broken things. Next up is Blazing Aether. Of course, we're playing 2 of those. That's our big kill condition. It also is just a 0 damage spell that can leak 2 to 10 damage on any given turn. If they take something like an Aether Spindle for 5 and you follow it up with Blazing Aether for 5, that's just an insane turn. That card is busted. Going down, we cut the Blazing of Aether from our last deck list because Oldhim and Iyslander are no longer in the meta, so sadly that will not be making a return. Cindering Foresight is a card that I've been tempted to. I'm going to throw one of those in there for now because it is really good if you're in the, oh no, I need to kill them this turn situations, but it isn't amazing. So this is a card that you can mess around with, change one of the reds around, and see if you want it. Next up is Scolding. We played 1 in the last deck list, and I think we still play 1. It's not the best red. It costs 1 more than something like Scalding Rain does. But the upside of this card is so good, and it still blocks for 3, and if you play against a Bravo, you still want this effect. So it is still really, really good. Scrolling down, Forked Lightning's days are over. No more Forked Lightning. Dampen, again, unless you're playing against a lot, and I mean a lot of Jomais, I would not put Dampen in your deck. It's just not good enough right now. Scrolling down, there's not a lot of stuff here that we're looking at, and then we see Reverberate. Reverberate is such a good card, especially against these more aggressive decks. Being able to go wide on your opponent's turn or on your turn. Sometimes on your opponent's turn, it's like another Stormshiders off the top. You play this, then you can play a card from your hand at instant speed, and it just feels amazing. Such a good card. Scrolling down, my old list did not play Scalding Rains. My old list played the 2 for 5s. But at this point, I think 1 Scalding Rain is good. So I want to put that 1 Scalding Rain into the deck list. Again, I expect decks to cut more of their blues and try to be more mainstream. And when they become more mainstream, that lets us do more broken stuff with these 1 costs. Going on to the final page, we have Swell Tidings, which I played 2 in my last deck list, and I'm still going to play 2. This is a really good effect if they don't want to block. Being able to hit them for 6 off of 1 pitched card is great, and if they don't block anything, a Panda token is huge. I've never had the Panda token to hit, but a 2 for 5 or a 3 for 6 is still very strong. Looking at the final few spots, you have Tome of Aetherwind. That card is coming in, of course, because drawing cards is good. Buffing your spells up is good. It does everything you want. So now you see here we have 1 open spot, and we have this Voltic Bolt. Do we play the Voltic Bolt, or do we play a second Chain Lightning? And I think for this deck list, honestly, we are going to go with 2 Chain Lightnings. Because I think this is the best format going into an unknown meta that we think will be faster. I expect a lot of Fis, a lot of Briars, a lot of decks that are trying to abuse there being no old man. And because of that, we need these cards like Chain Lightning that cost 1. We need these cards like Scalding Rain. Actually, this should not be a Scalding Rain. This should be a Quickening. Let me change that really fast. I forgot that Quickening is a card now. I'm so used to Scalding Rain. Where is Scalding Rain? There's the blue Scalding Rain. Where's the red Scalding Rain? There it is. So yeah, because I expect this new format to be so aggressive and so redlined, I don't think we can afford to play these slower 2 costs. We're still going to play some. We're still going to play 1 Scalding. We're still going to play 2 Swell Tidings. We're still going to play these cards that'll let us beat decks like Oldhim. Bravo. Oldhim has been such a menace that I keep forgetting that he's no longer with us. We're still going to play these big reds that can get over the top when needed. But our new game plan is just going to be throwing a bunch of mediocre cards that do less damage but lets us play more than one card a turn. Cards like Reverberate, cards like Chain Lightning, cards like Lesson in Lava, cards like Sonic Boom, cards like Quickening that get go again. We're just trying to go as wide as possible. And I really do think fitting another Quickening into this deck list might be correct. But right now I'm going to test out this Chain Lightning because it's a yellow. It still does 3, and it always has go again if we play the turn cycle correctly. So this is my deck list going into the new Blitz meta. I will be making a gameplay video following this up very shortly to show you how it plays out. But feel free to leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about the deck list. Tell me what you want to see changed. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. If you buy singles from MinMax Games, use code ASCENT. It helps me out. It helps my team out. Let's make the Fab community grow. Let's get out there and win some games. Have a good one, everybody.